Bryan, how you doing?
Never better in my entire life, and that's the truth.
Oh, well, great. Can I just ask you how the new Swedish bone marrow is going?
Well, I've started to unintentionally speak in Swedish, so trying to figure that out. No, I mean we this is our first time doing stem cells. So I had 100 million young Swedish bone marrow derived stem cells infused. Let's see, 2 weeks ago, and I've not felt anything subjectively. However, we are monitoring 15 epigenetic markers, so we're interested. I mean, like the cool thing about this is no one's ever been as quantified as me. No human has ever been as quantified. And so
Right.
people who have done studies, they've looked at MSCs as it relates to COVID recovery and recovery and a whole bunch of other stuff, inflammation, but never across the entire body. So we're interested to see what it can do across whole body.
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, obviously, the fact that you're tracking it is great, and I guess you consider this to be. I know it helps with osteoporosis
Yeah.
and cardiovascular disease and so on, but would you see that this could be potentially a systemic kind of rejuvenation?
Yeah, we're looking. So this is the same as we were looking at with follistatin. We did the follistatin gene therapy, and we were looking at epigenetic age reduction, slowing the speed of aging, and then a bunch of other things like lower inflammation. But we had about 30 or so different targets for the follistatin therapy. The same thing is true for mesenchymal stem cells. So we do know that the obvious targets are cardiovascular and inflammation, things like that. But we're also interested in speed of aging. And now that we've been looking at this new clock with True Diagnostics, looking at 13
Yeah.
different organs with their new omics clock. And so now we have this level of granularity to look what's happening on an organ basis. And so it's really fun. I guess like a few things have been happening. One is like when I did the young plasma, I did 6-1 plasma therapies. Uh, we couldn't find a measured effect in my body. Now that does not mean it didn't have one. It just means the tools we had to measure the effect, we couldn't see them. Now that we've got better
And did you
tools,
did you feel any effect from that? Because a lot of people talk about clarity and different symptoms that have been alleviated through the therapy.
none. I really felt nothing. But on the other side of that, I mean, I gave my father 1 liter of my plasma, so he had 600 milliliters taken out and 1 liter of my plasma in, and his speed of aging results. We just got them in today. He dramatically lowered his speed of aging. So we'll have that
Okay.
data to share in the next week or two. But it had a dramatic effect. Now he's 70 years old. So I guess like the cool thing that we're piecing together from follistatin to mesenchymal stem cells to plasma therapies to me and my dad is um, where while we couldn't see effect in me, it was dramatic in my dad. And so
Interesting.
sometimes we're seeing therapy stack, sometimes we're not. Sometimes better tools are allowing us to have better insights. So we may come back and say we didn't think the plasma had any effect, but actually it did, and we just couldn't pick it up. So like now that we're
Right.
almost 3 years in, we're really starting to see the payoff of this long-term measurement of generating insights. So it's like just happened over the past 2 or 3 months. So it's exciting.
Yeah, great. Well, hey, listen, Brian, we're here to talk about the Don't Die book.
Yeah.
And I managed to sneak a copy before it went offline. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But actually, it was quite interesting that you talk in the book about your former self. And I guess that we all have points in our life where we perhaps go, right, that was the point where it happened. And I guess I'd be interested to know when that would have been in your life, and would that have been on Kilimanjaro?
Yeah. Oh, the it should be online still. We just redirected from bryanjohnson.co to bryanjohnson.com, but it's still freely available to everybody.
Great.
I'll fix that though. Thanks for the heads up. I mean, so like just to zoom out just a little bit, the book is basically trying to tackle this question. The universe is 13.8 billion years old, roughly. It's always changing. Earth is 4.5 billion years old. We're now evolution, created us. We created artificial intelligence. So intelligence has created intelligence. We're baby steps away from super intelligence. And so what the book is trying to address is what do we do now? And if you look through the history of society, religions would have an answer, capitalism would have an answer, certain other frameworks would have an answer, and they would say, "Here's how you understand reality, and here's what you do with a given situation." And "Don't Die" is an effort to try to strike up a fresh conversation. What now? And it basically tries to fill a void, saying that the structures of society today, from capitalism to religions really don't offer meaningful things to say right now. That they basically have run out of, they're ideologically not up to this point in time, and so that's the
Mhm.
context of the book.
Yeah, and of course, the context of the book is really fascinating, and it's a combination of the Earth's longevity as well as your journey for yourself.
Yeah,
And really, you talk in the book about, as I say, your turning point, and the crew that were on Kilimanjaro with you, right? And I mean, we've all got a bunch of mates, right, and
yeah,
buddies,
yeah,
and we all have these conversations where they ask what the hell you're up to now,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
kind of have these opinions. And I thought it was quite an interesting cast of characters that you had in the book. You got farm boy, cognitive bias, model builder, your scribe, right? And I got my money on who Blueprint is, but we'll come back to that some other time. But I really like the approach, because it's like a modern day parable in the
Yeah.
frame of a debate. So what made you approach the book in that way? Was it kind of having read too many books and sort of thought, I've got to rewrite this somehow, redress the way that these books are written?
It was the genesis where I started having dinners at my house. I'd call them the first supper. I'd get, a few 10 or 12 people of my favorite people in the world, and I would pose a thought experiment. And I'd say, imagine that you had access to an algorithm that could achieve for you near perfect health, like you best in health, mentally, spiritually, physically, all the above. And you could say yes to the algorithm. The trade-off was you would need to do what the algorithm told you to. So eat what it told you to, go to bed when it told you what to do. So you're following the algorithm. Would you say yes to the opt in? And in that conversation, a third of the people would say yes, anything to save me from myself. A third of the people would I would say, well, yes, but I want to make a few changes. And it's like, no, lol, that's not the thought experiment. And then half of the people, or I guess the remaining people, would be so offended about the idea that somehow their free will or agency or whatever they perceive themselves to be was the ultimate manifestation of their existence, and anything that challenged it, they would just be so offended they wouldn't even know what to do. And then for 2.5 hours as a group, we would debate the discussion. Like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to make decisions? What does it mean to be able to actively do things that shorten one life? What does it mean to be, 20 years old now and to be making decisions that affect your 60-year-old self? Who gets decision
Hmm.
power? Which one of you? And so in those conversations, people would have existential crises. You'd be like, I don't know why I exist anymore. I don't understand my reality. And they'd pop back up and they'd be like, okay, I've reconciled with that thing. Now I'm on to my next. And so it was basically trying to capture the essence of a group of friends getting together to try to reconcile with each other. What does it mean to be human right now? And what does it mean to be human in 10 years from now? And how can
Right.
we emotionally process all the complicated questions we're up against? And so the book is basically that, told through characters of myself. And I tried to basically make the debate so vigorous that you hear from one character and you're like, yeah, good points. And you hear from the next character, like, actually, no, I really agree with that guy, but really try to swing it really hard on the different sides of the arguments.
Yeah, great. And I guess, in terms of it being kind of like a metaphor for many conversations that are being had at the moment, I
Yeah.
mean, was it a real meeting? Was this a bunch of guys that did Kilimanjaro and then met up at your place?
They are the inner voices of my head. Yes, that book is the dialogue that has been going on in my brain for 10 years.
Right. And do you find that you can have those objective conversations with yourself?
Yes. And
That's
I can
fascinating.
swing from both sides of the argument of like, here's this perspective, but there's that one, and how do you reconcile the two? Yeah, definitely. I eagerly adopt. I eagerly try to fully embrace very different perspectives than what the default in my mind is.
Right. And you're a successful entrepreneur, Brian. So would you say that that's something that you've applied career-wise to the various companies that you've founded?
Yet the truth is more often than not in the inverse. So when you find what you think is the answer, look at the exact opposite, and you may be getting closer.
Okay, that's really
I mean, so I
interesting.
mean, like
Yeah.
Phil, here's an example. Like I had a few scientists. I think I told you this last time we chatted, where a few scientists came up to me and they said, "Okay, we confess, we hated you. We hated you because when you came out, we thought you discredited the entire field. We hated you because you were an embarrassment to the field. We hated you because like all these things. We actually love you now because we thought the future of anti-aging would be communicated through scientific papers and lifespan
Hmm.
studies and whatever else, not
Yeah.
through the language of, like the absurdity that you've been doing online, but you actually speak the language of the internet that allows people to engage in this thing in ways they understand. And
Yeah.
so
Interesting.
basically, if you apply this inverse equation, you can say longevity is going to come to the front door of scientific publication and government guidelines. And you have me, it's like, no, we're doing, I'm posting nudes with kettlebells, around. I'm doing penis shockwave therapy. I'm doing mesenchymal stem cells from young Swedish bone marrow. So like it somehow it struck a note as like it's a language that people speak and understand.
Yeah. And I guess just coming back to Don't Die, obviously you've got it across your chest there as well. This is a question relating to that is this kind of kick back a little bit about people in some parts of the longevity industry talking about immortality
Yeah.
and others taking a genetic view that say that, humans won't ever be able to live past 120.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that debate? I mean, do you feel that there is the longevity, escape velocity, and immortality is on the cards, or do you feel that we have to be a little bit more, grounded in the way that we look at this and some of the claims that we make?
Yeah. I look at it through the frame of Adam Smith began writing about capitalism, and he kickstarted what is now the dominant ideological force on planet Earth. Nothing is
Hmm.
stronger than capitalism. It's power. It's just raw power, and it's all consuming for the species. And he kickstarted that philosophical and practical and economical approach, and it's assumed. And now along the way, like communism came along, and fascism came along, and Marxism came along, and like see, people tried different things, but uh, he nailed the philosophy. He nailed the ideological structure. And I
Hmm.
I have endeavored to try to do the same, to like make an Adam Smith moment. What is the ideological structure that will dominate intelligence on planet Earth for the next century? And I'm hypothesizing it's don't die. That basically, when you acquire the power of the gods, which we have with artificial intelligence, the only foe is death. The idea of raising armies and conquering territory, or these other games, like those are pastime. Now it's happening today, sure, but it's a primitive game of intelligence. And
Hmm.
a more as you increase in intelligence, the games are going to change, and the only game intelligence is going to want to play is to not die. And that is, don't die
Right.
individually, don't kill each other, don't kill the planet, and build benevolent and safe AI that scales like in ways where all intelligence thrives. And so, I
And,
mean,
and do you, And sorry, Brian, do you see that AI, which obviously is causing a lot of debate at the moment, the complexity of the human body and biology, whatever the species may be. When we spoke before, you were talking about the longevity kind of operating system as we talked
yeah,
about it, and you referred to this in your book. I mean, do you feel that really the secret to life sits within AI, and then once we've been able to identify that and use AI to maybe control that then the
yeah,
potential of a very long life or maybe an immortal life is on the cards.
yeah. If you look at examples where the best AI teams have been focused on a particular problem. So let's just take DeepMind, incredibly competent
Yep.
team, and they trained their attention at AlphaGo and stunned the world. Uh, they trained their attention on protein folding, stunned the world. With AlphaFold, they've trained their attention now on fusion, which is amazing. They basically have demonstrated that when you take an incredibly competent team and you increasingly arm them with better, I don't want to say arm and violence, and you equip them with increasingly better tools of intelligence, they can knock out in shocking little time feats that humans thought were impossible. And so this is
Right.
why when anyone is trying to say, oh, aging is such a complicated challenge, and oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. I don't think they have any idea what they're talking about. They have not incorporated into their algorithm the power of artificial intelligence, even as it is now, let alone a year from now or 5 years from now. We can't even begin to understand it. And so, to me, we humans have absolutely nothing to say about how and if it could be done.
Right. So just exploring that a little bit more then. So you're referring to obviously one organization, and of course there are multiple universities
Yeah,
spinning out multiple exciting companies into commercial ventures that are sponsored and supported by multiple venture capitalists, all operating in their
yeah,
respective
yeah.
silos. Do you see that there's going to be a point of realization that everybody's going to have to work within the same construct, maybe with the same technology platform, to be able to effectively bring their own science to contribute to the wider longevity of us?
It's going to be thousands of groups approaching aging in these different varieties. I think it's going to flourish. And this is the thing, like we don't know what's going to happen, right? And so like we may solve aging, we may not. We don't know. But when I'm looking at the next few years, probabilistically, I am guessing I don't want to die. I'm guessing I'm going to want to be around to see what happens. And that's the thing that everyone can agree upon right now. Like we have all of our
Mhm.
differences, we're going to fight about everything else. We all play don't die every day. And so I'm just suggesting we get really, really good at don't die, which we already do. Everyone does already.
So in terms of the scientific approach that we're all taking at the moment, just coming back to that question of not dying, and therefore, if you don't die ever, then you are moving into a state of immortality, or at least the choice of
Yeah.
immortality. And I guess I'd like to come to the don't die message for the environment and the planets as well in our conversation,
Yeah.
but just bringing that back to human beings. And I'm not trying to force the question because I'm just really interested in your opinion. We've got the concept of longevity, escape velocity, and so on. Are you sitting in that camp, Brian? Do you feel that there is immortality available for us all?
I do not talk about immortality. I think it breaks the human brain. I don't think there's
Hmm.
any benefit because the only thing we humans understand is tomorrow. Do we want to live tomorrow? I do. I have stuff going on. I'm excited about it. And
Yeah.
caring about tomorrow is the same as caring about some infinite time up front in the horizon. Because when you live for tomorrow, you and I are both assuming right now we have infinite tomorrows. Like we know that death is coming our way, right? But we don't actually believe it because we have tomorrow.
Hmm.
And so
Well,
tomorrow,
there's a dissonance, right? We all have that in our
exactly.
lives.
So all we have is tomorrow. And so if we just pull back to the very basics, you and I today did several things to not die. We looked before we crossed the street. We threw out moldy food. We changed the battery in the smoke detector. We wore a seatbelt. You and I both tried to not die. Now, like maybe someone does those things and they're smoking a cigarette. So there's like some conflict, right, in our don't die understanding where we just don't want to die right now. We're okay dying sometime in the future. But what I've tried to do with the blueprint is I've tried to become best in world at not dying. So I've said, okay, we all do these
Hmm.
basics of like seatbelt fastening, great. I've tried to say, what if you measure as many biochemical reactions in your body as possible and figure out every single way your body's dying every day? And how do you stop that process from happening? And we get better and better and better and better and better. The future is just basically getting better at what we already do. We already have agreed upon in society, we don't want to die. So it's a
Yeah.
very natural continuation of a game we all play.
I like that because I guess that's it is quite polarizing when you talk about
Yeah.
immortality in our industry. So really, you're saying stick around long enough for the science to catch up to where you want to be next, right? Rather than dream of a future where you're traveling the stars
Yeah.
or whatever it may
Yeah,
be.
and there's so many things that divide us and that create acrimony and create disagreement. You know, like are we going to overpopulate the earth, and are we going to like blank, 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 and blank? And so we can just play it a day at a time. I mean, like this whole ideal idea, like people have said that we shouldn't go after longevity because all these other problems. Um, we don't know what future problems are going to be. That's always been historically impossibly hard. People who have thought they could have mapped the problems are wrong. The new problems emerge, old ones go away. And so I think there's really a an opportunity for Don't Die to become the rallying cry for the species. Like, how do we develop AI in the framework of Don't Die? How do we take care of our
Hmm.
environment in the framework of Don't Die? How do we build nation state alliances so we don't go to war with each other and nuke each other? Don't Die. It underlines everything in existence that we can build new structures of cooperation. So like feel like one point on this. I did this with myself. I'm a collection of 35 trillion cells. I said, can I take Bryan Johnson 35 trillion cells and align every cell of my body towards don't die? I
Right.
attempted to do goal alignment for my 35 trillion cells in the same way we're trying to do goal alignment for 9 billion humans and like I tried the computational problem myself to be, the 0th person trying it out.
So let's talk about the planetary aspect of all of this, right? Because you do in your blueprint have the blueprint for the way that we can survive as a planet as well as a species on that
Hmm.
planet. And I'm minded by a conversation I had recently about really the effectiveness of the environmental lobby, right? The way that the
Yeah.
environmental lobby has galvanized. You've got all the COP meetings, and you've got government policies, and you've got capital going into helping with renewable schemes and so on. We don't see the same momentum behind human health, right?
Yeah.
We're still in a sick care
Yeah.
society. So interested to just understand the transition. Perhaps we could take as an industry into learning from that lobbying and that approach, and maybe that galvanizing.
Yeah.
That we don't have that imperative yet as ourselves, do we? So
Yeah.
interested to know your thoughts on that, Brian, and obviously then to understand really what you feel is the blueprint for the planet.
This is something we tackled in the conversations at my dinners. And the principle around blueprint starts with there was a version of me, Evening Brian. Every day he was worn down by the stresses and terror of the day. 7 p.m. would arrive. He would feel so down and out, have very little willpower. And the only thing he could think about were the brownies in the fridge or, whatever was there. And to try to
Yeah,
soothe his pain of life, basically overeat. And it led me to being 50 pounds overweight, and I was miserable and I hated myself and I couldn't sleep, and it was just an awful existence. But basically, I was like this rogue person. Morning me would be like, we did it again. Like afternoon, like I can't buckle up the top buckle in my pants. I did it again. Like, why did I behave in these self-destructive ways? It was just so insane.
hmm,
And so the blueprint is basically to say, like, I as a human, I make these mistakes on committing these self-destructive behaviors. I ate too much food. I ate junk food. I don't exercise. I can do all these things that basically bring disease and death closer. And Blueprint said, okay, we're gonna build an algorithm here that's gonna take care of you. Your body's going to speak through measurement, like your heart and your lungs and your liver. They're going to have a vote independently, and the body is going to take care of itself, not the mind. And I fired my mind. I said to my mind, you can no longer make decisions on what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat, how you're going to eat. It's all an algorithm now. Now, of course, people hear this and they become terrified. They're like, oh my God, that's like the most dystopic existence I could ever imagine. It has been the most liberating experience of my entire life. I no longer have to grapple with, do I eat the cookie or not? It's gone.
yeah.
And so,
And are you finding? Sorry, but are you finding that scalable? I mean, obviously, you're sharing your knowledge with other people. Are you really picking up the same vibe from other people that have now tried your program?
yes. And people successfully are identifying the friction between their various selves, right? Most of us want to be better versions than we are right now. We have goals, we have aspirations, we have big ideas, and we want to grow and build and be and all that kind of stuff. And we want people to have an opinion of us. It's high. We want to be
Yeah.
respected. But then we don't live up to those things because we just can't quite get ourselves into control. So we're always up against that thing. So we know there's a friction there. And so
Yeah.
even if somebody can implement it, the success to me is to say, we've got a big problem, right? We have a big problem between what we want to be and what we are. And that
Hmm.
gap is what's attributable to like climate change, the way we treat our earth. That's a gap. Like we treat planet earth the same way we treat our bodies. It's not
Right.
it's not because we hate the planet. It's not because we want to pollute the planet. We just do whatever we want whenever we want. And so like basically this behavior is a mirror. And this is no one has had this conversation in society. And this is what this book is trying to do, is to say, hey, like how funny is it? How ironic is it that we literally treat the planet like we do our bodies? Like it's the same problem.
I
And
get it.
yeah, and so once you make that insight, like, oh, and then you say, and how we build AI is how we treat each other. Oh, and how we understand each other. It's like you see, it's all comes back to don't die. It is the philosophical structure. Well, but right now we assume death is inevitable. Therefore, and that just leads us to trash the planet and build bad AI and treat each other very poorly and. So it all comes from like this origin of how we understand ourselves.
Mhm. And the scalability from where you are. I mean, obviously, you've been public for a while now. You're fighting dragons every day on social media and so on, with all of the opinions that are being thrown at you. But with Blueprint now and the momentum that you've got within the program, how's it been over the last few months? Have you seen progress?
Yes, we actually. So when I started Blueprint, it was simply a scientific experiment. It was a hobby, and then it hit. Like no one cared about Blueprint for 2 years. It was like I was out there publicly, but no one cared. Then it hit, and then it really struck a nerve. And so the thing that people said most commonly is like, "Get me on Blueprint," but I don't want to make any decisions or try to do anything. I just want it to be easy. So over the past
Yeah.
past 7 months, we've built a family of Blueprint products, which includes powders and pills and shakes and stuff like that. And I would put forward, we are competing for uh, calorie for calorie, dollar for dollar, the most nutritious food product in history. I literally in history. Now we'll see. Like you never know what a new product's going to do. Maybe we're going to drop it and we've messed something up. It's going to like flop. But we are competing for that. Like it should be so good. The UN should distribute this.
Right.
It's really really good. It's based upon all the evidence we could find, 1,000 papers, and so that launches in 60 to 90 days. And I never, I'm not doing this to make money. My objective really is sincerely the future of intelligent existence. And so if this can basically make Blueprint dead simple, we say, eat this for breakfast, eat this for lunch, and eat this for dinner, right? And then like
Mhm.
get some exercise and go to bed on time, you have the majority of the benefits. But like basically subscribe to don't die in life. And like so we're
Right.
trying to make it dead simple. I shouldn't say dead simple. We're trying to make it very simple for anyone to do this at the most affordable price. I think we'll probably save people money on their groceries than what they otherwise would spend. It'll be much better for them.
That's really interesting, and I mean, my own story relates somewhat to that, Brian. In that, I was vegetarian for most of my adult life, over well, actually 37 years
Hmm.
to be exact. And I realized that through my metabolic profile and the dietitian that I was working with, that I really was an omnivore as opposed to a vegetarian.
Hmm.
And I did find that once I changed my protein, that my energy levels and my fatigue issues managed to dissipate. They
Hmm.
haven't gone away, but they definitely changed. Is there going to be like an onboarding and a typing for people so that they take the right avenue of Blueprint, or is it kind of like a one size fits all because it works for everybody
Yeah.
method?
It's a one size fits all. So we're definitely going to not work for some people for some reason. So it's gluten free, dairy free, it's vegan. So we have in, for example, the last meal of the day, we say, look, if you want to eat meat, like here's some good options for you. So we're trying to appeal to the broadest grouping of people possible. And it's
Right.
just we're basically just doing things that fruits, vegetables, some protein. So we'll see. I mean, really, I've been eating this myself, but I'm of course not the exact target market for this. So we'll see. I'm excited because I love the idea of how could you endeavor to build the best food product in human history. People they tackle a drink here or a supplement there or a pill there or like a certain food, but no one's tackled the entirety of nutrition, and we did that. We did it in seven
Mhm.
months, and I feel very proud that we actually we took it on and we're delivering something.
Yeah, great. Well, I imagine there's a lot of heavy lifting in the background with packaging, product labeling, approvals,
Yeah,
ingredient lists, all of that sort of stuff, right?
you. How did you know that? You're exactly right.
Well, I guess so. Brian, obviously, there's the book, which obviously was one of the reasons why we were speaking today. So I guess I saw the preview copy. Is it in editing and going to be coming out on bookshelves? Will it be out by Christmas?
Yes, so there'll be a printed version you can buy from Amazon, hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days. The electronic version will continue to be free, and then I'll have a recorded version. I'm currently trying to assess whether I will read it or whether I'll get some actors to. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I I hope that it lands in the way that it's an understandable zeitgeist shift. I don't know. I wrote the book. in kind of a vacuum. It was based upon my life experiences, but and I have gotten, I get a few dozen emails every day of people who read it, and they email me and they tell me of their thoughts. So I'm hopeful that it can hit, but you'll see.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, Brian, I found it a very interesting read, and the approach was very interesting to me because I've read these books that not this particular book, but other books that are guidance books or methods, and frankly, I struggle to get first past the first few
Yeah,
paragraphs
yeah,
and chapters because it's tedious,
yeah,
right? At least
yeah.
you kind of you're straight in, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. I love you. You're right, and I had a few publishers approach me wanting me to write like the Blueprint Protocol book with the science. I was like, no, I'm not doing that at all. I'm gonna write a story about inner dialogue that everyone understands.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to seeing it on the shelves before Christmas. And Brian, thanks for joining us again today.
Thank you for having me. Always great talking to you, Phil.